Welcome to 2024. I want to start the year off right with a game that I equally love and also want to curve stomp on every occasion. Battle Brothers, a turn-based tactical RPG developed by Overhyped Studios, is a procedurally generated single-player RPG. It's fun, but also frustrating because RNGesus will snap your fucking neck because of a bad dice roll and kill one of your brothers that you've been building up for the last 3 hours of your life. So let's talk about it. The premise of the game is rather deceptively simple. Taking place in a low fantasy setting, you play as the leader of a mercenary company looking to claim your stake in a world with blood, violence, and a lot of bodies, and a lot of crowns. There's a handful of opening scenarios you can choose from that affect your starting party of brothers, equipment, overall relationships, and certain conditions you are meant to follow. For example, you can start out as a peasant militia and build up to a grand mercenary company with the ability to bring 16 men into battle and have 25 in your overall roster. The downside being that you can only recruit dirty, filthy peasants because you are a dirty, filthy peasant. However, with the addition of various DLCs, you can play as southerners, barbarians, even a lone hedge knight, though there are generic opening companies from both the north and south that have no particular advantages or disadvantages. So let's pick a company and let's get started. With this being a tactical turn-based RPG, there are two different stages of the game, the overworld and combat. The overworld is generated before you start your company and can be built on a random seed with noble houses, settlements, terrain, and so on. I've seen a few games thrive or die just in the first few seconds because of the layout of the map. If you don't get a good one, it can make it extremely difficult to navigate and work around. While there is certainly a tutorial game to rebuild your company, it's recommended that you watch some YouTube tutorials that give a greater in-depth look at the mechanics. I'll touch on some of them here. You have a handful of things to keep track of in the overworld itself. The first is the amount of crowns you have. Money can buy new equipment, brothers, items, and various other things. It also pays your men on a day-to-day. Without pay, they'll abandon the cause and leave your company. Food keeps your company fed and your brothers happy. Adding a variety of food will boost morale and give your brothers bonuses in combat. Your tools will maintain your equipment and weapons, which will degrade in combat or damage. You can also repair equipment to resell at a later time. You also have your ranged ammunition that is used for slings, crossbows, and bows. Finally are your bandages, which work like tools but for your body. You'll inevitably take damage during your travels and you'll need to keep healthy. Alternatively, you can pay a temple to heal your wounds at a cost. You'll traverse the map from settlement to settlement on the overworld where the majority of the game is spent. All contracts will be randomized starting out and you'll be restricted to local settlement contracts. Pay low but are easy to work with. It can vary from finding hidden locations, recovering artifacts, package delivery, caravan escort, monster hunting, and even defending settlements from raiders. You can negotiate these contracts for higher pay or money up front, though asking for too much can even take a hit on your reputation. If you have a negotiator as part of your retinue, you can even do a second round of asking if the first time didn't budge. These contracts vary in difficulty and can even be deceptive at times. One skull might seem easy until you read the details that request you hunt unholds or cave trolls, while 3 skull might just be some nomads hiding in the desert. Since there's no voice acting, everything is communicated through text boxes, which comprise most of the random events that exist throughout the game. For example, I was transporting cargo to someone up north when a box came up saying that the cargo was making strange noises. Investigating further, it was revealed to be hiding some high-level undead. Getting a similar event, I chose to decline investigating and nothing happened. If you feel a contract is too much for you, you can drop it at any time, the consequence being a hit to relations should you choose to do so. Renown acts as your reputation. The more you get, the more dangerous, but also more lucrative contracts you're given. Earning enough renown can give you access to noble contracts that pay much more, but you run the risk of getting one of your brothers killed, to which the game encourages you to lose. It's difficult, even for beginners, and you'll constantly be shifting out new brothers. When you go to a settlement, you can pick up new brothers that vary depending on location. A fishing village will naturally have fishermen, mining towns have miners, and so on, though they do shuffle out every few days, and you can pick up new ones. You have so many very different backgrounds for brothers that include militia, caravan hands, grave robbers, deserters to higher quality like barbarians, oath takers, hedge knights, and nobles, disowned adventurers. You can customize their appearance at barbers, change their names to whatever you'd like, and even give them titles as well. They all have their stats and strengths and weaknesses as well. You can always try out a brother to get an idea of their traits to determine if they're worth hiring. As they fight, you'll gain experience and level up, which will allow you to pick a perk and roll their stats, allowing you to put points in a variety of stats. You can level them up to level 11 for perks, but each level up after will be a single point into a stat. You can build anyone, though, up to the right build with the right perks and rolls. An average peasant can be a formidable frontliner with a mace, shield, and heavy armor. It all depends on your playstyle and how you want to work it into your builds. Inevitably, as a mercenary company, you will have to fight all sorts of various beings on the overworld. This brings us to the second half of the game, the battle system. The field of battle will vary depending on the terrain and is represented with your brothers as chess pieces along with the enemy. Terrain, time of day, and elevation plays a massive part in your combat. Darkness makes it so ranged units have a harder time hitting you, but the same applies to yours. A forest can force enemies through choke points, but also make it so you can have enemies coming through multiple angles. A steppe can have various elevations, allowing you to take the higher ground and have an advantage. There, your party composition of brothers is where your cracks can start to show. You can pick up a few dozen men, but their quality, stats, and their traits are what grants their effectiveness in battle. Seeing one or two of their buddies get their heads lopped off can bring a big resolve hit, and getting an arrow will cause them to flee in terror. With it being turn-based, you'll always see who is next in the lineup and can opt to skip your turn and bring them to the back of the turn. You can also use an ability to allow you to jump to the front of the turn at the cost of fatigue. Your abilities will vary depending on your perks and equipment your brothers have. You'll also need to consider the enemy you're fighting and the strategy you need to employ to defeat them. Spiders will web and poison you, serpents will pull your brothers out of a battle line and isolate and eliminate, orcs and direwolves will charge your lines. Human enemies can also vary. All are subject to resolve penalties, but also depend on the quality of the troops as well. A small band of brigands will be vastly different in quality compared to an army belonging to a noble house. You'll always have the option to retreat, though you'll take a morale hit as well as potentially losing brothers in the fallback. The music is what adds so much life to this world of blood and violence. Composed by Breakdown Epiphanies, the soundtrack is an orchestral style that is happy to act as background music you can hear in a medieval setting. Each track feels tailor-made for the situations you're in. Some tracks are subdued that you notice only slightly, while others give you that endorphin rush from conquering your enemies. Traversing the overworld, battling a noble house, fighting barbarians, even fighting a land dragon. There are even boss fights that include a barbarian king and a kraken that the music managed to capture the feeling of. If you're looking for music for a D&D session, there's a full 2-hour playlist on their channel. I'll play a few tracks to give you an idea of it. To say this is an iconic soundtrack I could listen to for hours is an understatement. Definitely give it a listen. As for the story, considering the procedurally generated nature, there is no real story to the world of Battle Brothers. The beauty of it is creating your own story through your own trials and tribulations. No one story will be the same, and creating it through your own actions is what makes Battle Brothers such an astounding game. You will fail, and you'll fail a lot, but your victories are all worth it. You'll see what injuries you get and know where they came from, what legendary weapons or items that you acquired, who is still part of the original roster of brothers, and when you choose to retire is all up to you. The last thing to mention is the Endgame Crisis, which you can select at the beginning or have at random. Each will vary, but also give your brothers a goal to push towards in sheer strength. Endgame Crisis will determine how it affects the world, but after the first one, if you don't choose to retire, you'll get a random one that isn't the same as the last time. Nobles at War, Greenskin Invasion, Undead Invasion, Holy War, each of them drastically affect your world and how civilizations last. A Noble War won't destroy settlements, but a Greenskin incursion definitely will, with drastically stronger enemies, but also the highest paying contracts of the game. allowing you to skyrocket in gear and brother quality quickly if you're willing to take the risk. I absolutely recommend this game, if this is your style of RPG and turn-based, though do expect to get your ass handed to you the first couple times you'll play. But once you get past the difficulty cliff, it's a satisfying experience. I've only really scratched the surface at 52 hours, but it's been well worth the asking price for the game and the DLC. If you're looking to pick it up and the subsequent DLC, you can find it on Steam and GOG, but also the Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation 4 and 5. That's all for now. I'll be following up with another fantasy epic. Have a good one, lads.
Excuse me, sir. You're just in time for the event.
What event?
Wiener Compression Day.
The fuck?